All right, guys, what's up? We're back. A random topic itched my brain, and here we are. So the Red Scare is really coming back in America right now. The House of Representatives just passed a bill denouncing the horrors of socialism, as if we don't really have many more pressing things going on. There's been a lot of red baiting on the news going on recently. Zoran Mamdani became the mayor of New York, and everyone's been saying he's a jihadist, communist, socialist who's ruining everything. Why would people in New York want a socialist or a communist mayor? These people don't even know the definition of socialist and communist, when socialism and communism have killed 100 million people and blah, blah, blah. So today, we're just going to do a little thought exercise, and I'm going to pull capitalism's kill count. Now, I can't even, first of all, that's impossible. All right, but what I am going to do is I'm just going to try to start a little further back in history and move forward and show you that capitalism has killed just as many, actually way, 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 way more people than communism or socialism ever have. All right, and I hope I explained this enough. Here's my intro, and there we go. All right, let's go back. Let's hit it at the roots. We're going to take it back to 1491 and the conquest of the Americas. Now, let's go ahead and drop the kill count before we move on. 880 to 100 million dead Native Americans. That is equivalent to 20% of the population of the world at that time. So what if I told you that at one point, capitalism killed 20% of the world's population? And people are gonna go, okay, but no. That was disease, that was starvation, that was smallpox, okay? And it's like, yes, but why did these things spread? Why did this happen? It happened because Europeans, particularly the Spanish, came to South America. They conquered all these lands, okay? They took everyone, including the people that helped them, and they put them in what's called a system of encomiendas. If you don't know what an encomienda is, don't talk to me about this. Go read some history. But anyways, what an encomienda was pretty much was a system where the Native Americans were pretty much forced to work the land for rich Spaniards. And then they would take whatever was produced off the land, a lot of times fruits, gold, hides, spices, exotic things that they didn't have back in Europe. They'd pack up all the things that these indigenous people were forced to labor and forced to make in their country, ship it back off to Europe for a profit. That's capitalism. So how did the disease spread? Because they were taking all of these people who lived throughout all of South America and forcing them to live in small, tight-knit slave camp communities called encomiendas, where they were literally being starved, abused, and riddled with diseases because they were stuck in poor, unhygienic conditions with hundreds of thousands of other people. You know what I'm saying? Yes, it was disease, but it didn't just randomly spread. It spread because of the encomienda system and what Europeans were doing to South Americans. 20% of the world's population died from 1491 to the first quarter of the 17th century because of capitalism. We've already beat more than the 100 million people that the Black Book of Communism says has died due to Marxism. All right, on to the next one. Let's talk about the North Atlantic slave trade. Let's talk about how 36 to 60 million Africans were killed in transport alone. Did you know that that is 4 times the number of Africans that actually survived and made it to become slaves? You know what I'm saying? Absolutely fucking ridiculous. It's also estimated that 6 million African Americans died while in captivity. And that is not as in like people who lived and died as slaves, okay? That is people whose lives were cut short because of malnourishment, overwork, abuse, like things like this. You know what I'm saying? So that's our kill count is resting at 170 million people right now. You know what I'm saying? American hypocrisy will let me count the ways they came here searching freedom, then they end up owning slaves. But let's move on to the next topic. All right, now we're going to throw some smoke at Great Britain and the East Indian British Trading Company, I believe it was called, and what they did to India. Did you know that over 100+ million native Indians died in less than 40 years in India under British colonial rule? Now, why did this happen? I'll tell you exactly why this happened. It's that there's actually a pattern here. They got all the land. They bought it up. They kicked the locals off of it. They said, hey, guys, fucking farm these teas and spices and opium and shit we need to trade, okay? No, I don't care that there's not enough land left for you to farm your food now because daddy needs this opium to trade with China, okay? Basically, they created a famine in India. They polluted the clean drinking water. They literally stripped India of the bare essentials needed for people to live, and they packed it up and they sent it to trade in other countries for a profit. Okay, and it is estimated that after that, in excess of 165 million deaths occurred. After the 100 million that had already happened within 40 years. So that's another 265 million deaths added to our death count, which was at around 170. So we're at 2, 3, 6, 14 minus. All right, guys. Sorry, couldn't do that math. Smooth brain. But we're gonna do one more example of a poor South American or African country, and then we're gonna move on to American deaths, because I understand that those are the only deaths that most people are really gonna care about. Okay, so let's talk about King Leopold from Belgium and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which was not a democracy nor a republic. Literally, what it was pretty much an entire false state made up so that they could extract the resources from the Congo. Pretty much King Leopold in Belgium said, hey, we're gonna go down to the Congo, we're gonna make it a much better place, we're gonna build cities, we're gonna give them water, we're gonna build infrastructure. They really did none of those things. The only cities or roads that they built, the only infrastructure they built were to take things from the heart of the Congo to the coastline, where they created factories and ports to haul everything off back to Europe. Like, do y'all see the pattern here? It tends to be that capitalism is a strong country taking advantage of a weaker country and taking its wealth back home with it for a profit. Are y'all seeing the pattern here? But they abused children. They were cutting the hands off of people who didn't work hard enough. There's a bunch of pictures of children literally as young as younger than 10, 7, 8-year-olds, horribly mutilated as punishments for not working hard enough for King Leopold and the Belgian government. You know what I'm saying? It's estimated that 10 million Africans died there. And a lot of people say that number is 2 or 3 times even higher, that it could be 20 or 30 million Africans who died in the Democratic Republic of the Congo at the hands of King Leopold in Belgium for the sake of capitalism. Now let's move on to the Americans. All right, we don't have long left. I have one more example, and then I'm going to rant for a very short bit. Okay, so what if I told you that 110,000 Americans die literally every year due to drug overdoses, and this was because of the American government and capitalism? You'd go, you're crazy. That's not real. That's because of Mexico. Well, in 1979, and for almost a decade prior, America and the CIA had been supporting this evil bastard named Anastasio Somoza Debayle. He committed several human rights violations, including having death squads that would literally roll around and murder his political opposition, literally doing the same stuff all the other guys are doing, letting the Americans come in, take all the land, move all their fruit and food to another country, starving the people. Very basic stuff, right? This man gets overthrown, which should be a good thing, right? Not for America. So now we have him, Somoza, he fled, and his entire cabinet of evil bastards just living on the fringes of society, a lot of them running and fleeing as exiles to America. America goes, man, this sucks. Nicaragua's going communist. We need to do something to stop this. What do we do? What do we do? We can't give money to these groups anymore, to these evil, death squad rebellion groups trying to re-overthrow the government, because an act recently passed through Congress stopping us from doing that. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to let these people, these cartels, come over from Nicaragua, sell their drugs in the United States to the American people, and get the American people addicted so that they can turn around and use the money that they made to go fund a rebellion back home in Nicaragua. The rebellion back home in Nicaragua failed. Today, 110,000 Americans die every single year, and it is a result of America's capitalistic dealings with evil regimes in South America. You know what I'm saying? I know I've said it a lot, but do you really know what I'm saying? So my whole point in making this video is that both sides, capitalist or communist, are more than the worst things you can remember about them, okay? But if we're going to play the numbers game of who has killed more people and who's caused the most harm, it's capitalism by a fucking long shot, by a lot. Think about world hunger, okay? World hunger is a problem because we take all the food from all of these foreign countries and we bring it into countries like America and Europe, where we are wasting 40% of our food, okay? We are taking food from other places for a profit and letting these other countries starve. People have to understand that if you are living in comfort because someone else is living in chains, if you are living in freedom because someone else is living enslaved, neither one of you is free, okay? Because they are enslaved by you and by capitalism, and you are enslaved by being their master, because the minute the chain is cut, they are going to eat you. And as they should. And that's what's going on in a lot of places around the world right now. So I just want, literally, once again, communism and capitalism are more than the worst things that you can remember about them. And I hope that people now are able to approach different political systems and ideas with a more open mind, knowing that we are just as guilty, if not more guilty, of what we're accusing other people of.